So, it's interesting. I like what you're going there is, I think you use the word translating. Like we've got to translate what we do into information in the way that they're going to understand it. And here's the thing, to be these internal advocates and internal salesperson, there is a world of research out there. If you went on to AI and talk about the incremental impact on revenue of increased CSAT scores or increased NPS scores, there's a ton of information out there that correlates those two. Like we don't have to make these numbers up, right?
Yeah.
But the story, it can be told. And it's really interesting. I read this recently in a Harvard Business Review article. We remember things 22 times better if it's told to us in the form of a story. So tell the story, right? And use industry stats and industry studies that are coming from the biggest consulting firms in the world, right? That it's irrefutable. If we do this, every 1% increase in our CSAT scores should impact our net revenue retention by this amount, right?
Yeah.
And so that way it puts it into okay, this is a revenue driving function, right? We're very rarely associated with revenue creation, but we're directly tied to it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, that's what I took away is like, from what you're saying here is we got to work as hard at making the case, building the templates, the communication, the knowledge base with our external customers. We got to work really hard to do that. That means researching. That means putting the case together. That means telling the story well, right? So I love where you're going here. You talked about something called a seamless journey architecture in our previous conversation.
Yeah.
And what I loved about this is we're kind of moving now from, okay, we got to make our case. We got to be able to communicate it well, to basically identifying the critical integration points that the organization often overlooks. So you can tell the story, you can say, this is how we impact it, but then you got to translate it to specifically what we're doing inside of our company. And you talked about these critical integration points, the seamless journey architecture. If you could just explain what that is and what you do, that would be great.
Let's see if we have enough time for that. No, of course. I mean, I think there are two layers there. Of course, the customer journey, the customer visible journey is the most important. So it needs to start from the very first discussions with the prospect customer to understand their business drivers or those metrics that they're looking if they decide to invest in our services, right? And it needs to start from there, over to sales, then to professional services when the implementation is being done. All the time the same metrics, we are working towards the same metrics. Then it goes to production, support takes over. Support needs to be aware of those, what are the key business KPIs for this customer. And of course, eventually at the same time, the customer success as well, which is then, responsible of renewing, helping the customer to realize even more value. So that's the one layer. But then the other dimension, I would say, is all the functions which are not in that customer interface. And in support, it means, for example, being very closely connected to our department, because they are the ones actually, if there's some significant issue with our products, a bug, for example, new feature coming out which is not fully working or something like that, that needs to be, close collaboration with R&D, for example, and other functions as well. This is, in my opinion, building towards seamless customer value and seamless customer experience as well.